And what a beautiful thing it is to come together and find time in this sacred hour to center that which is of most worth in our lives. And I'm so appreciative that you have taken time this month to be reflecting about themes of collective liberation and freedom and abolition, a world that is without cages. And I wanted to share a song that we sing at Broadview Detention Facility, which is a place where many who have been disappeared from the streets recently due to the ICE patrols have been detained. And the humanitarian issues there, of course, are many. And clergy have been proverbially knocking at the door, trying to bring in supplies for not only sanitation and hygiene, but to bring spiritual services, only to be met with denial and sometimes brutality. And we sing together, "A world without cages is at the tips of our fingers and in the palms of our hands. A world without cages is at the tips of our fingers and at the palms of our hands." And to hear more and more people singing this song and taking up this vision of liberation. When I first heard the song, I was filled with tears and imagined us not only gathering outside the gates of the Broadview Detention Facility, but also outside the gates of the prisons and the jails all over this country, in a country where 1 in 12 children have experienced a parent or caregiver being incarcerated, where our incarceration rates are out of control, and we're part of a system that continually and systematically over-surveils and criminalizes people who are from historically marginalized communities. And I'm brought into center by the words from Anthony Talib Bell. And I come bearing greetings from my friend and co-worker Keith Talley, who often reflects about Talib's words because he knows Talib, because Keith is a black Muslim and Talib is a white Muslim who became Muslim in prison. And Keith, who is not allowed to cross state lines yet, not until next year, 2027, maybe we'll come back and Keith can come with. But he shares about how community was formed, a community of protection, of black brothers surrounding Talib, who was someone who had betrayed his race, according to the corrections officers who treated him with disdain and extra doses of brutality, because it is seen in their eyes as a betrayal for this white man, this white prisoner, to join with black brothers in this faith of peace and devotion. And so when Talib writes, he shares about this inner freedom, which is why he, of course, was drawn to become a Unitarian Universalist with the Church of the Larger Fellowship, to choose to be a part of our heretical faith tradition as someone who practices Islam, and to share about how freedom can flicker from this internal deep place that we cultivate within, no matter what the physical constraints might be. That when we get together and we ground ourselves and we center ourselves around the spirit of love to which we pledge our mutual loyalty, that we are engaging in acts of liberation that overflow and flow out into the world through action and practices that bring more joy, more hope, more love, and more peace into the world. And so Talib's words inspire me to do the inner work that is required to really believe that it is possible, that if humans built all of these systems that oppress, that hurt, that harm, that we too as humans can disrupt those systems or plan and build those joyful places outside of the status quo that is filled with so much greed and hate right now. I think we all need something more to believe in these times, amen? And that sense of certainty and the spirit of love that flows in and through all of us in all things, we must cultivate it here because our lives depend on it. And I will tell you, as someone who has the opportunity, yes, the gift and the privilege of going inside carceral spaces, that message is all the more powerful. It bounces off of all those gray, concrete, disgusting walls that I wish to tear down. And love bounces in bright and beautiful and welcoming in ways that are astounding to the Spirit. When we bring in our messages of Unitarian Universalism, of liberation, of belief that we are worthy beings of love, and that we are all connected, and that we are inextricably linked to one another in a network of mutuality, as Dr. King reminds us, that is a gift. The gift of our living tradition that knows no walls. A love that knows no bounds. And a love that invites us into solidarity. And solidarity is something that is, as one of our advisory council members, Monica Cosby, who was locked up for 25 years in an Illinois women's prison, Logan, she reminds us solidarity is a gift. It's something that is not just spoken, but it's put into action. And Monica reminds us about how much people who are in the free world have to learn from people who are in prison. People who have been learning to, in spite of all the odds, of all the brutality and the punishment, have found ways to form community together and to thrive and create acts of beauty and joy and resistance together. In fact, they are the ones who may be able to lead us, if we're willing to listen, about how to survive and even thrive in authoritarian regime, because that's what prison is. And Monica tells stories about how she developed community with her friends, fellow women who were willing to, if they saw a sister was having a bad day or a sibling was looking a little down, to make a little face at the guard and get a ticket and get a write-up for it, but made their sibling laugh and brought joy to their day in an otherwise gray, walled-up existence. To find ways to scrape up enough money for commissary so that Betty Jo could get her coffee, because God knows that our well-being depends on Betty Jo's mental health and being caffeinated. These are the stories that Monica shares about how much we all have to learn and how much is being wasted by not having folks outside bringing their wisdom to us. And so I invite you to consider being engaged, being in relationship with people who are incarcerated. There are Unitarian Universalists all over the United States who are waiting for pen pals, who are locked up, who have joined the Church of the Larger Fellowship. Did you know the Church of the Larger Fellowship now is over half of its membership is incarcerated? And so that means that there are people who are hungry for our theologies, hungry for these themes of liberation, and hungry for the vision that we bring, where we understand that we are working towards our faithful practices, a world that we dream of. A world without cages. A world of justice, of peace, love, hope, and joy. That is infectious. That hope is a currency inside prison and jail walls. Another advisory council member, Patrice Lumumba-Daniels, who is currently caged at Dixon Correctional in Illinois. He's been caged first as a youth and now as an adult. He's been in and out of incarceration since he was 12, now in his 50s. He reminds us that visionaries, like science fiction writers, have written the future into being. And we can do the same. We can believe in things that people say are impossible, and that they'll say you're crazy for thinking it. That we can believe those things because we have seen them happen. He writes about how Isaac Asimov was writing about technology that didn't exist. And yet here we are, living in that technology that he wrote about. And that is an example of the reminder of the possibility of the human spirit, which is something that is so important to believe in, to find hope and to find a way through being incarcerated. I've had the privilege of journeying with people who are incarcerated and who have so much to give the world. And like Mike shared, it is such a deep sadness of mine to know that time that they have has not been able to be offered up in the free world in the way that I would want it. But we can continue to build connections with those who are inside and work for the world we dream of, a world without cages, because these things are possible. Now, I know you've been focusing on lava. Is this right? This lava theme? I don't know, I have to do this with my body, like wave it around. And like I imagine like this magma core, and then we're drawing up this like fiery energy so that it can fuel your faith in the ways that it needs to fire up the world, to warm up this wintry landscape. And how beautiful was it to bring this poem about diamonds? You know, diamonds are these gems that are often found in lava. They've been created through carbon just under massive amounts of pressure. And there are so many people, so many voices of wisdom and inspiration who are like diamonds, who are flickering their beauty and their freedom, who are inside awaiting connection with fellow Unitarian Universalists. And we can be a part of that flickering in understanding the multifaceted ways that we could more creatively engage with our radical imaginations to imagine another world that is possible, and then to put that imagination into action. In this way, with all of the values we bring as Unitarian Universalists, we give opportunities for our members inside to see freedom flicker. May it be so. Amen.